Hey, everybody, welcome back. I am having so much fun interviewing these panels. Without any further delay, here is the official introduction. Writing a book is often a solitary experience. It's just you and the blinking cursor, or trying to put pen to paper. Surrounding yourself with fellow writers and authors could be what helps you get to the finish line. It's what helped me write my first book. And that's also how you get to find out about all the experts that you need to find to navigate the complexities of writing, editing, publishing, and marketing a business book. Now, I've created resources to help you find your author community and meet these experts. The Biz Book Publishing Hub has over 50 hub partners who are ready to help entrepreneurs become successful authors. And this free resource is available at bizbookpublishinghub.com, where you'll also find out about the free hub community virtual networking events that I host throughout the year, and can find all the archived episodes of this podcast, the Biz Book Publishing Hub podcast. Before we dive into this panel, here's a quick word from our sponsor. With me today are three authors. Brigitte Cutshall wrote Teenage Wastebrand, How Your Brand Can Stop Struggling and Start Scaling, to explore the transformative journey of a brand navigating the challenges of growth and identity in a competitive marketplace. Diana Morgan wrote Whole Heart Social Media Success Formula, What to Say, Where to Play, How to Win, a comprehensive guide to building authentic connections and fostering meaningful relationships. It combines emotional intelligence with practical strategies for personal and professional growth. Evelyn Starr, author of Move for You, Empowering a Healthy, Happy Life Through Exercise, offers practical guidance and motivational insights to inspire readers to embrace an active lifestyle, emphasizing the importance of movement overall, well-being, and personal empowerment. Please join me in welcoming Brigitte, Diana, and Evelyn. Brigitte, I'm going to kick things off with you. So thrilled that you can be here. I'd love to know a little bit more from each of you about who you wrote your book for. What was the reader that you had in mind, Brigitte?
Well, I think you mixed up the books. My book is Move for You, Empowering a Healthy, Happy Life. Right. That's where that's my book.
I'll re-record that for the intro. My assistant copied and pasted in the wrong places. I apologize.
Yeah.
And I saw some movement off the corner of my eye, and I'm like, I'm just going to keep going.
Right. And yeah, I wrote Move for You because that's actually my fifth book that I've written. My background is publishing, but I didn't write my first book until after my last cancer diagnosis. So I wrote it to help people. I'm a health advocate to empower you to not just survive, but to thrive and help you focus on what matters. And that's what Move for You is about. And movement helped me heal with cancer the third time, and other people's stories are in there just to share that and just kind of inspiring.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go over to Diana. Diana, tell us a little bit about your book.
My book is for people who struggle with how to really use social media to authentically grow an online presence. My clients are mostly women and a few smart men, as I say, and they are people who weren't born with a mouse in their hand. And it's plain English, and just tell me what to do. These are evergreen strategies that will help people get through the struggles and just stop wasting time and really have success with social media and actually start to love it.
Wow. I think there's a lot of people out there who would like to love it again. Evelyn, what about you? Who's the audience that you had in mind for your book?
The audience for Teenage Wastebrand, How Your Brand Can Stop Struggling and Start Scaling, is business owners who have had some initial success with their brands, but then hit a plateau and their business level's off and they're not really sure how it is that they need to get to the next level. There are also people who may have come to own their business not through a business or marketing background, so their eyes glaze over with marketing jargon. So like Diana, it's a very straightforward explanation of the different elements you need for your brand to get it to the next level.
Evelyn, when you got started, is this your first book?
Yes, it's my first book.
So for this question, I want everyone to be thinking about their first book if you've written multiple. So for your first book here, did you have a particular idea of what success would look like? Were there certain metrics that you were, oh, if we hit these metrics, I'll know that this book is a success? Now, this is different than how you might today count success for the book. So go back to where your brain was when you were writing the book and thinking about getting it published.
Well, there were two things in mind when I started writing the book. The first was just as a writer. I knew I wanted to write a book. My second child had just been accepted to college, and I knew that I was going to have this empty nest and some time. Um, and the idea for Teenage Wastebrand just kept coming back to me. It was, just kept hitting me. And so it became very clear that whatever books I wanted to write, I had to go through this one to get to the next one. So people who are not writers may think I'm a little touched in the head. I can see Bridget and Diana already nodding their heads because when you're a writer, you know the the ideas that have to come out are not going to leave you alone. So that's the first thing. But in terms of measure of success, I had originally thought it would be a ticket to more speaking engagements. And that's not to say that it wasn't. I know we're going to talk about how things turned out, but I started the book in January 2018, and I ended up publishing during the pandemic. And so that had a big effect on the way things played out.
But you did initially tie the idea of having a book with being able to speak on more stages.
Yes.
That was
And
a
hopefully
metric
get
there.
more business.
Yes, and that's the point of this whole show, the
Yeah.
ROI of writing a business book. Bridget, let's bring you in here. I'd love to hear when you were first getting started with your very first book. How did you think about metrics back then? And then I would love to sort of hear how that shifted for your most recent book.
It's similar to Evelyn. I was going to get more speaking gigs, and I actually did get more speaking gigs. And I presented my first book. Did health coach training, even though my background, I wanted to help me heal. And I got to present that book at the Lincoln Jazz Center in New York with other authors. So that was a big deal. And it was fun and scary at the same time. But it gave me some credibility, if that's the right word. And I don't really remember keeping track of any metrics because I was just happy to be alive. Okay. I published it about a year after the last cancer. So I just wanted to get the inspiring message out there. And I gave that book away to a lot of people going through cancer. And it's called Real Things, 6 Ways to Embrace Life. And so fifth book later, I wrote 2 other books that weren't related to that because it's a different story. But I think it's okay to change your story sometimes. And that helps you broaden your audience. And the most recent book I did, the Move for You, I saw a lot of people during COVID moving more, which is good. I saw people getting outside more. And I'm a long-time runner, excuse me. And that actually helped me heal. And so people were just impressed based on my background, all these weird health issues that I've had. They were my readers who inspired me to write about this. That's really what it was. And I always look on the positive side. And that's why the subtitle is Empowering a Healthy, Happy Life Through Exercise. And you don't have to run like me. You can go bike, you can go walk, you can go garden. That's why I want people to.
What were the metrics of success as far as the book coming out? Were you tracking book sales, reviews?
I was tracking reviews. I got more reviews. I got more sales. The first book was more ebooks. This one, the most recent one, is more physical books. And I'm one of those physical books kind of person. I think it's the age, the generation I grew up in. I wanted something physical, then I could highlight stories. So that's what it was. People find that inspiring. And I've gotten on tons more podcasts. I think because podcasts weren't as popular back in 2015, but they are very popular now.
Awesome. Thanks. And Diana, how about you? What were some of the early metrics? And is this your first book, Diana?
This is my first book, but I also have a chapter in 2 different anthologies. And very different writing your own book. A solo book is so different. And my metrics, I of course, sales of the book, but also it was really more about influence and credibility, like what Bridget was saying, and more speaking opportunities and other kinds of opportunities and referrals and clients. And that is absolutely what has been happening for me. And it was also, Evelyn, I love what she said about, it's like you have to write this book to get to the next one. Same for me. I just was like, okay, this is 17 years of content that I need to put in a book so I can move. I already have an idea for the next book. So it was like, I got to do this one first though. So I really, I echo that.
And Diana, has your definition of success evolved since the book came out? Are there new metrics that you're starting to pay attention to? Kind of like Brigitte now is getting on more podcasts. Like, has something become available to you that you didn't even think to look for initially?
Honestly, I mean, all of the things that I planned on are happening, and my social media is really expanding exponentially, and that was something I just didn't really anticipate. So that's been great.
Yeah, and Evelyn, I want to hear more about how you have sort of evolved your thinking around the book's success and the new possibilities have opened up.
Well, so as I mentioned, I ended up publishing in April 2021, which, the vaccines were just starting to come out. So my speaking engagements turned into lots and lots of podcast interviews, which was fine. And I thought for a split second about delaying the book, but I needed it to come out, and I also needed to move past. So the way the biggest difference for me, Robbie, is that the most meaningful metric for me is the engagement with my readers, the people who come up to me and say, this changed the way I think about my business. I had someone who recently wrote me and said, I'm just launching my own consultancy and I'm picking up your book to reread it. And by the way, I've recommended it to 5 people because it helped me understand brands so much. Those kinds of engagements and knowing how I've helped people, they may not be in the tens of thousands, but I can float on that for days.
Yeah, it is hard when you're first starting to write a book to really imagine the impact. And when those early reviews come in, it's one of the reasons I like collecting reviews in advance of publication, is it's at the moment when the author needs that little boost of confidence that they wrote a quality book that's positive and helping people. And those early reviews, no one is cribbing off each other because no one else has seen other people's reviews. So they're honest. And they're the people who are probably most motivated to help you get the word out. I want to actually shift the conversation to reviews. And Evelyn, of the 3 of you, you've done a really good job of getting reviews out. Honestly, anything over 20 reviews is really hard. I think people listening underestimate how difficult it is to get written reviews. There are 2 different kinds of reviews on Amazon. There's ratings, that's the stars. So you can have X number of stars. And so for you, you've got 37 total ratings, but you have 33 reviews. And so 2 things about that. One is the ratio is really high. I'm always wondering, what was the plan when an author has 125 ratings and less than 10 reviews? And they're walking around being like, I have 125 reviews. And I'm like, no, you don't. It's really easy to get people to click a star button. That's not hard. How have you approached reviews? What was your process of doing this? Did you have a plan in place? Was there a launch plan? Was there a launch team? I mean, okay, you're nodding along. I want to hear more about this because the intention and you do have more recent reviews. I see some of our author friends from the last Kindle cross promotion showing up for you in the last few months. But before that, even, you clearly had quite an undertaking to get to the reviews you first had. I'd love to hear it.
So I had been researching good self-publishing launch tactics for a very long time. And so I publish a newsletter, I should say. I've been publishing it for 12 and a half years. And so I asked my readership who would be willing to be part of a launch team. And my launch team wasn't big. We were 11. Okay. And actually, I should say they were 11 because that doesn't include me. But they were 11 really motivated people. And so a number of them posted reviews on the day that I published. I also had some early readers, and since they had read the book in advance, they went on and published reviews. I didn't actually even ask them. Some of them just did it. And then as I've had podcast interviews, the interviewers who actually read my book went on and put reviews on. Anybody who sent me a glowing email, I'd say to them, hey, if you had 2 minutes, could you go and do a review. And what I also learned is how to send them a review link that doesn't reflect like that I sent a review link. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's there's a way to do that. And so I've just asked people individually over time who were very enthusiastic about the book. And, you know, even a sentence or two helps. And so that's how I've gotten to the number of reviews. It's been an organic build over time as opposed to like um, you know, a major push at the beginning and then nothing.
It's very impressive that you started with 11 people and you've gotten 30 plus reviews. That, I mean, it shows that piece around the continuous asking, which all of us could be doing probably a better job of. If someone says something nice to us on a comment on a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post, like copying that, sending them a note and saying, hey, here's a direct link. Would you mind copying and pasting this into an Amazon review? I'm pretty good about doing it for LinkedIn testimonials. If someone says something nice about, I don't know, me speaking, I've gotten good about that. But I do think it's a consistency to have a plan. And I love that you mentioned, how do you send them the direct link so that you know exactly where to put it? The best thing is when people have already written a review. Like, that's the hard part, right? Like, let's help them actually just publish it. So for context, all three of my books have at or over 200 written reviews. My last one just hit 250. So I do these big launches early on. But like you said, it's about having that organic after. Like, I mean, to get to 250, the last 50 took, you know, another year. Like, you know, I had the first 200 like within weeks, and then it was like slowly over time, the rest came in. I'm curious. Let's see. Let's go over to Brigitte. So Brigitte, you've got 11 ratings and 10 reviews. Were reviews part of the process as you were thinking about this? Did you see them as being important? Did you ask people directly? Or are these organic?
It's organic. People buy the book. They're just not
Yeah.
reviewing it because I'm not. And one of my other books got more reviews. It had nothing real. That was a very popular book. The other one, the Expecting the Good, but that's what it was. I'm more of an organic kind of person. I help other people with their projects, but I have a hard time talking about me. And majority of those reviews came. I did a launch I have an advanced reader team. I think I had probably not that many actually, like 5 or 6, but they left reviews. But people, you know, they have to want to read it. There's so much, I should say, noise, and that's kind of why you have to niche down a little bit. And I think that's why I'm very passionate about writing about health and wellness. And it was my sons, by the way, that convinced me to do this, which is kind of funny. They're the ones that convinced me.
Yeah. And if you have some background noise, if you just wouldn't mind muting, if that happens to be you, Diana, I'm hoping that's not you, so I can ask you this next question.
I don't hear it. Sorry.
Did you approach the reviews as part of your process? You know, since the book came out, it seems like you're getting a lot of recent reviews. Is this a book that's sort of on the newer side? When did it come out?
My book just came out in June.
So I'm seeing, yeah, you've got 4 reviews that came in, written reviews just in the last few months. So
yeah, and honestly, I did not focus on reviews, and this, I guess, this more addresses another question that I'm planning on doing a relaunch because this was, truthfully, this was a lead magnet for me, and I'm going to just dive into this if it's okay. At the end of each chapter are 3 action steps. And what I'm planning to do is an online action steps program. So it'll be an online course. And at that time, I'm going to do a relaunch of the book with the action guide. And, you know, I got a lot of reviews on social media, and I took screenshots of them and I share them all over the place. But I just didn't really focus on the Amazon reviews, which, listening to Evelyn, I'm like, okay, I think I need to add that in.
And, you know, it's not too late. Like, you could still go back especially if you have screenshots, that's helpful. You can go back to them and boost that, particularly as you're leading into the relaunch. Relaunches are an awesome idea, particularly for books that really more or less published but didn't really launch. And I think for first books, this is very common, which is why, Evelyn, it's so cool that you got out that process. It's hard to do when you're just trying to figure everything else out the initial time around. But getting reviews, I see them as social proof on the book sales page. So if people are considering well, buying the book, clearly it can be helpful. Even a bad review could actually help with sales. I'll give you my I always tell the story of my wife. My wife is an avid listener of books, like close to 300 a year, and she's really into romance in particular. Is one of the genres she likes. So if a book gets like a 1-star rating because it has too much smut, she's like, "Ooh, what's the book?" Like, so someone else's yuck is someone else's yum. Like, just, I had someone write not a negative review, but he was like, my second book, and he loved my first. And when I saw his review, again, it came in via a Google form ahead of time, so I did see it before it was live. I said, yeah, my book was written for entrepreneurial women in their 50s and beyond, and you're none of those things. Like, maybe you want to give a little context. So he added, like, I loved Robbie's first book. This book really wasn't for me. I think it would be best for, and then he gave a little sentence about who he thought should read it and said, like, that's not me. I'm not building a business. So he gave it a 3 or 4 star. Here's the thing. That then made everyone read his review because it stood out from all the 5 stars, and it confirmed for people who it was for. So I don't worry about the like star rating so much, but I do think reviews overall are really helpful, but they're really hard to do. So I'm always helping authors trying to figure out, get the right launch team, get the right prospects and referral partners, whole process. I mean, kind of like what Diana said about building out a program. I didn't plan to build out a program, but enough people ask me that. How are you doing that? And now I'm going to write a book on the process as well, because why not? I want to know, actually, we'll go back to Diana. What was, besides reviews, because reviews is its own whole thing, what else was the challenge for you? Like, besides reviews, what was your biggest challenge around? Was it writing, getting it edited, publishing, like, I don't know, getting it out of your head? What was sort of the big, and you can have more than one. I do not feel like you have to hold back.
Okay. Let's see, where do I start? First, I want to say, when I started writing the book, the action guide was not even an idea. And when one of my editors read my book, she suggested the 3 action steps at the end, which led me to the action guide. So that was really helpful and amazing. Honestly, I think the biggest challenge for me was I had so much content. And, because I've been writing a blog for, like, I don't know, 20 years. So it was like, okay, where do I start? So I started with, okay, I'm going to just start with my blogs and start editing those and forming those into the book. And then all the other pieces got added in. So that was one piece. And, I'm an introvert. So just that whole publishing was really big for me, as a social media, expert who's an introvert, which a lot of my clients are too. That was really big for me. And, I asked people to help me to, like, give me those little cosmic pushes to really get out there with it.
So you're saying it's not even the technical piece of publishing, but the emotional connection to now being more visible was what was sort of difficult.
Yeah, which is also something I include in the book. But it was, so the book ended up being published a week late. And I happened to be on a retreat, but I still had to do my launch. 2 days of my retreat was at my book launch, because I just wanted the book out by this certain date. So I was with my friend, and, it was hugely emotional for me getting that book out. And
I appreciate you sharing that, because I haven't heard many people talk about that piece, but I've heard people on one of these panels was talking about the vulnerability of sharing in a book format, like your thoughts on a topic. Like, it's you're hanging your hat on this idea, and you're like, this is the thing I believe, whatever you want, stake in the ground. I don't know.
Right. And the book was very personal too. There's a very personal aspect because it's my story. And I don't know, maybe this is moving into another topic, but what I did was I actually asked 100 people if they would share it. I gave them a little post on Messenger and asked if they would share about my book on the day of the launch. And that was, like, profoundly moving for me to have all those people do that and have the response that I got of being, getting to number 1 and all of that.
Wonderful that you had the 100-person list. That's awesome. I something you said that I wanted to just mention, your publication date doesn't have to be your launch date. And I think a lot of people listening don't realize that. It could make you, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to do all at once. There are benefits, these actually being 2.5, even 3 weeks apart. My first book, they were only 3 days apart between when it was live on Amazon and when I was trying to announce it to the world. And in those 3 days, I tried to get everyone to get the reviews posted, and it was a lot. It was a lot. But
You want to
now
really echo that.
you want to give some breathing room. You want to nurture your launch team for many weeks ahead of time so they're primed and ready to support you. But I love the idea of identifying specific people, personalized outreach to them. For you, that was personal messages through Instagram. I use a Malmerge system. Yeah. So, Bridget, I'm going to come over to you to ask, what was besides reviews and all of that, what was your biggest challenge or challenges? Go ahead and unmute. There you go.
My biggest challenge is, well, for this particular book, it was hard to, I had to hire a designer and getting them, because I don't believe in designing my own stuff because you need a different perspective. And they were a little behind, and I had the launch date on my birthday because it was related to the 10-year anniversary of the last cancer. So that was part of it. And had to be patient. That's really what it is. I think you need to get help and not try to do everything by yourself. And that was the hardest part of it. And I did give the books to Atlanta Track Club. I'm one of the coaches and I'm a member of Atlanta Track Club. So they gave me really good feedback. So I wanted them to talk about it. They talked about it a little bit, but I didn't go ahead and have them do an ask for me, right? I just was being too subtle. I think that's what I regret, even though they loved it, because it's 3 different sections and just trying to motivate people. I have humor in there because that's how I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I have been told that I should create a course from this. So, but I haven't laid that out yet. I already have, I created a video book of it, of reading the introduction, and I had a lot of views on that on YouTube. So I was just testing it out.
Mm-hmm.
So what we call it, a video book. Is that what you call them? So that's really becoming popular too. So I'm considering doing that because I do a lot of speaking, and I do help my clients with their projects too. I help with the books, by the way, but the actual production. And so I think I hold myself back too much, and I need to ask for more help. And when I did, like I said, with the designer, it was a little frustrating because I don't understand why they got behind, but design looks good.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many moving pieces. Project managing, if you are doing it yourself, I did this for all my books. I project managed all my books. My first book, I had very little money to invest, so I took on a lot more work learning about the process, and I had to even train some of the people I hired because while they had certain skills, they weren't like having the same standard that I wanted for the book.
Yes.
Yeah, so over time, you start paying for people who actually have expertise and they're teaching you things, which is wonderful, but it's a real investment in of what the book will look like and all of that. I think what you're talking about asking for help is really important, being clear about what lanes you want to own and where else you might ask for some support. It could be a paid person, but also could be colleagues of yours where you could trade support for each other,
Yes.
depending on what you're trying to do. So, I mean, kudos to you for just getting out of your way and getting it out into the world. That is the first part of the process.
Right. And I had to hire 2 editors because people don't realize you need more than just one editor.
Yeah,
And I
different
can't
editors,
edit
different
it.
styles of
Yeah.
editors.
Yeah,
One place to look for all of those kinds of experts is the Biz Book Publishing Hub. I mentioned in the intro that we've got more than 50 experts. So what's great is you get to kind of get a sense of these different people who do these different services, see what their focus is, see their contact information, their resources they're giving away, what other services they offer. Some of them are just singular, like they just edit, but a lot of them offer quite a range of services. So if you don't want to be in charge of project managing, you can definitely find someone else to handle that part. Evelyn, what was the biggest challenge or challenges for you when it came to getting this book out into the world?
It was definitely the production of the book. I had a developmental editor, and I loved writing the book, and I went through 2 major revisions. And as hard as that was, I was really into it. But when it came to producing the book, particularly during the pandemic, and the biggest sticking point for me was the book cover. I went through 2 book cover designers before I ended up with the third one, and I lost a lot of time. The first person was MIA a lot. I didn't know what was happening. A lot of weeks went by. I thought I had contacted the person with lots and lots of time, and then I ended up after, I don't know, 6, 7 weeks or whatever, basically firing that person, finding someone else. My second designer and I were working well together, and then she got both vertigo and sciatica. And then she refunded my money and recused herself from the project. So now I'm like 4 months since the first time I contacted a book designer, and I had to get something done quickly. And so that was my biggest challenge, was finding somebody to work with. I will tell you, which I have not publicized anywhere else, and I will not be talking about much publicly, that my book is getting a new cover. So I'm not going to do a major launch about that, but I am going to, take my second chance to do the cover right instead of feeling pressured.
Yeah, it is hard because all of it has to come together at a certain point. For my last book, like Bridget, I had a very particular deadline. I wanted the book launch date, not the publication date, but the launch date to be March 13th, 2023, which was the 3-year anniversary the first time I hosted a virtual happy hour. And the book was about how to leverage Zoom to design inclusive, engaging, transformative events. So it was very poetic or something. But I thought the book was going to be 25,000 words. So I had 27,000 words written by the end of December, and I was nowhere near done. And I wrote all through January while I was handing pieces off to my editor. While my editor was then finalizing it, I was then reviewing her work and then handing things off to the formatter. And through January, I wrote another like 35,000 words in January. Wrote, edited, formatted. And the advanced reader copy was in the launch team's hands by the end of February, so that they would have time to get the reviews written and published. So, I'm very lucky that I paid through the nose to hire the right people who could meet me where it was an unreasonable schedule. I would not recommend it for anyone, but I was so committed. And I also knew my schedule would get busier during the rest of the calendar year. So it felt like a window, like I had to get it done. But Evelyn, if something like that had happened to me in the midst of all that, like I would feel the same way. You kind of can't let that get in your way. You can always come back. You can do a second edition. You can relaunch a book if you don't feel like you did the launch well. Like there's other opportunities to kind of get the word out there if you don't feel like you do it great in the first run. Evelyn, was there a particular strategy you had that sold a lot of books? I know you were talking about it coming out in the middle of the pandemic. You did a lot of podcasting. Was there anything that you managed to do that maybe led to bulk book sales or just a spike in sales because you were participating in some kind of, event of some kind?
Well, when I first launched my book, I put the ebook on for 99 cents, and and there was a window of that, like a week or so. And a lot of people on my email list went and bought it. So that was helpful. And then the other way that I've sold most books is pretty much speaking. Um, the number of people who've walked up to me and said, while I was listening to you, I went onto Amazon and ordered your book. So there's something about, particularly live speaking, there's something about being in that presence and getting their attention that way. And sometimes I wasn't even talking about the book. I was talking about other brand stuff. But those are the things that have done the most for me.
That's awesome. Diana, what about you? Was there anything that you managed to do that led to a spike in sales?
Definitely speaking. And I always share the link. Most of my speaking I do on, excuse me, online. And, I post about it like, I have a rotating system of posting social media, and I post like once a week. And most of those, and I still have my Kindle at 99 cents. And that seems to be like, pretty consistent.
Yeah, that's great. We connected all of us through Kindle cross promotion campaign that I ran around Prime Day in July of 2024. And I'm, as I'm recording this, getting ready to do it again around Black Friday. It's been really interesting for folks who have older books. I've heard from some that it helped them reconnect and get energy around a book they wrote more than 5 years ago. But for newer books, it could really help with a launch. And I have a few books right now that I'm working with authors who are going to be publishing in, I would say, like early November, with a focus on getting reviews by US Thanksgiving so that they are part of this campaign over Black Friday weekend, with, a goal of having at least 20 reviews on that book. Brigitte, what about you? Was there anything particular that stood out to you as a really good way to boost sales, either bulk sales or a day spiking your sales?
Talking about it a lot. People think you're like a superstar when they find out you wrote a book. It doesn't matter how many. So that kind of like, wow, that's good. That's why I mentioned it to the Atlanta Track Club. I gave the executives copies, and the same with American Cancer Society. But I haven't been asking for reviews. That's the downside. That's helped me get my name out there, more credit. Like I mentioned earlier, the credibility. And I just want people to be focused on positivity. And that's kind of why I wrote that, when you have health issues, that everybody's dealing with something. And that's kind of why having organizations collaborating, help have them talk, not just individuals. I think organizations can help you, depending on, your book.
That's a great idea, that you line up, it's cause marketing, line up
Yeah.
your book with an organization who has a shared mission and see what you can do to get the word out. They maybe want to have you come and speak to their donors.
Yes.
There's different opportunities like that. So it is about finding the right fit, or if they're hosting a fair of some kind, maybe you can get a table, or if they have a conference or
Yes.
a fundraising event, maybe you can table there with a certain percentage of proceeds going to their fundraiser. It is about getting really creative. So if your book has, it sounds like, with your book, Brigitte, it has that connection to a cause, then it would make sense to really do some research to find, starting local. Yeah, Dinah, let's bring you back in.
One of the things that I've been doing that's causing more sales is I go to an in-person networking event once a month. Normally, I'm mostly online, but they have a raffle. So I offer a book every month. And so every month I get sales because I offer the book, because they announce the book, and then everybody's like, oh, I want. And yeah, so that's been working too.
Oh, that's also clever. The idea of like giving away or discounting a book in order to get more buzz. One thing that came up one of the other panels, and it was an accidental advantage. They had a speaking opportunity during the time that their book was lowered, leading up to one of our cross promotion campaigns. And so they were able to say from the stage, hey, for a very limited time, the book's actually discounted if you want to grab the Kindle. And then everyone's like, well, why don't we always organize it so that there's a price break of some, maybe not 99 cents, maybe it's $2.99, I don't know. But you give a little price break if you know you're going to have a big audience that you're going to get in front of. So if you have access to your own KDP and you can adjust your own prices, that's something for us to consider, because it does spike sales. And if the book is a lead magnet, then that's good. We want it to be in people's hands. We want people to be reading it. And that's actually my next question, is about how you thought about the pathway between the reader reading your book and being, I love this, and then coming into your world and getting involved in the work that you do, and eventually becoming a prospect, and maybe eventually a client. So Brigitte, did you have lead magnets in the book, resources that you created? An email address, a website, like how are
I
people
do.
finding you? Yeah, let's hear
Yeah,
about
I have a download, an area on the website to download the, I can't remember what I called it, but it helped you to motivate them to move. And so to get that, you have to provide their email address to me, and then they can be added to my newsletter, read my blog. And that's kind of how I started doing it. And then that has led to one speaking gig, one paid speaking gig. How's that?
I
Not,
love it.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's attracting people into our email list, and we can also talk about how do we nurture them once they're there. Diana, what about you? What was your thinking of getting people from the book to the business, your email list, that kind of thing?
I do have all my links on the back page of my book, and I have a few links in the book for different chapters where I'm talking about different programs that I offer. And then I talked about the action guide. So also, I was promoting the book for probably about, I don't know, a year before I was going to, I've been planning to do this. Anyway, so I have a list that's specifically people who wanted to be notified about the book. And so I'm nurturing that list. I have a lot of free things, and then I'm nurturing that list. So everything will ultimately lead to the promotion of the action guide, which will be a very
Diana,
nice.
I want to have a conversation with you after if you're interested, because you have all the ingredients of a great relaunch.
Yeah.
You're like, I have specific people who raise their hand about that being interested. And it's like, and you have this new offer. Oh, that's so exciting. I offer 30-minute book launch brainstorming sessions. So reach out if you wanted to schedule that.
Yeah.
Anyone listening can reach out, and I'm happy to help you get there. Evelyn, I'd love to hear how you thought about connecting the readers to your business. What was the pathway they would follow?
Well, so my main marketing for the latter half of the 25 years I've been in business has been my marketing newsletter. I don't advertise. I am on social media, primarily LinkedIn, because my audience is business owners. So in my book, the major thing I did was invite people, if they would like to read more from me, to sign up for my newsletter. And it publishes only once a month. It's not stuffing anybody's inbox, but it keeps me in front of them. And I keep writing about, other brand stories so they can see how other brands worked out problems that they may have. And so that was the primary thing. I also, I had my LinkedIn connection information and a few other things, but for the most part, that was my main goal of, okay, you've read the book, and if you've liked the book, how do we best stay in touch? I want that direct connection of a newsletter subscription, because that is the one place that everybody still goes. I mean, maybe they're on social media. I'm sure Diana could go off and on about frequencies and all that kind of thing, but the one place everybody goes is their inbox.
One of the things I did is the end of my introduction. I have a yay at bookname.com. And if you have a big aha moment or big, outcome or whatever I phrased it as, not many people have taken me up on emailing me through that, but it's fun when it happens. It's always completely random. Usually by the time they find me, they've already found me on LinkedIn and they're sending a message that way. That's more likely what happens. So one thing I've noticed is having good branding, so that the picture that you have looks like you in the book, looks like you also online. So they can confirm it's the same person, especially if your name's a little more common. So I'm going to shift us to my last question, which again, I'll kick things off with Brigitte. The advice that you'd give someone writing a book to help them grow a business. But before we get to your answer, we're going to hear a quick word from our sponsor. All right, Brigitte. It could be something you've already mentioned, something new. What is the advice you'd give someone who's writing a book to help them grow their business?
I advise you to not have imposter syndrome. A lot of people do that. I was guilty, and it took my sons, like I mentioned, for me to do it. You have a story. I think it's important. And I think you definitely need to collaborate with somebody. That, if you have a partner, maybe that's going to help you finish, right? I've known a famous speaker who was mortified. She's never published a book. It mortifies her for some reason. But to me, it gives you a lot of credibility. And so you'll find a way to do it and to find an accountability partner or collaborate with somebody.
That's great. Thank you. And Diana, what about you? What's the advice you'd give?
So if you're writing your book to grow your business, definitely think about the keywords, because as you're promoting this all over the internet, I see so many people who they'll either get in a chapter or write a book that has nothing to do with their business, or it's just off. And so that just hurts my heart when I see that. Other thing is, be clear, like what Brigitte said, be niched and have a plan. And the last thing I'm going to say that I just, what you said today, Robbie, which is the difference between the production or the publish and the launch date. If that, I really didn't realize that I should have really given a lot more space in between those two dates.
Thank you for echoing that. And Evelyn, what about you? What's the advice you'd share?
To not replicate everybody else, I would say hire as much good help as you can afford. I spent in the thousands of dollars for my developmental editor, and she was worth every single cent. And so for whatever pieces of the work and the project management you don't want to do, if you hire good help, those people become enabling partners. And then the other thing I would say is have some beta readers and make sure your beta readers are in your target market, not your mom, not your sister, not your best friend. They have to be in your target market because otherwise you're not going to get the feedback that's going to resonate ultimately as you market your book.
You all provided such excellent advice. It's all these key pieces that helps create a better book, particularly the first go around when we are scrambling to make it all work. Evelyn, where can people find you and follow your work?
So they can go to my website, which is eStarr Associates, all one word, and Starr has 2 R's like Ringo, .com. So they can find everything about me there. I can also be found at LinkedIn under Evelyn J. Starr. And those are the 2 places I connect most.
Great. We'll put all these links, by the way, at the show notes at bizbookpublishinghub.com. Diana, what about you? Where can people find you and follow your work?
They can find me on my website, wholeheartmarketing.com, WHOLE, Heart Marketing. I have a Facebook group, Diana Konkoff, Whole Heart Marketing with Diana Konkoff Morgan, and of course, LinkedIn, Diana Konkoff Morgan.
Excellent. And how about you, Brigitte?
Go to my website, BrigitteCutshall.com. It's BRIGITTE, Cutshall, CUTSHALL, or on LinkedIn. And then I have a YouTube channel called Real Things Living.
Excellent. So we're going to have all those links in the show notes at bizbookpublishinghub.com, which is where you'll also find more than 50 experts ready to help entrepreneurs become successful authors, and an invitation to attend our free virtual networking events for writers and authors to meet each other and to meet our hub partners. I am so appreciative that you all came out for this conversation. Thank you so much.